A lot of like explosions. We see people that have blown off their hands.
Yikes. Okay, we all know how dangerous fireworks can be, but when has that ever stopped anybody, right? 4th of July is right around the corner. More than 13,000 people suffered some kind of fireworks-related injury just last year alone. We do this story every year. We talk about how important this is. It's not even legal in Colorado to shoot off a firework that leaves the ground, and yet here we are. So hopefully we can get a little guidance today. I've got Dr. Eric Yoder, Chief Medical Officer at AdventHealth Porter. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I personally get frustrated sharing this warning every year. I'm sure you guys in the hospital world do too, but this is every 4th of July. People getting hurt.
Every single year.
Talk about kind of just the prevalence. Like when you guys show up for work on those days, you know what's coming into the ER.
We are well aware this is a common thing every single July 4th. We see a ton of injuries, primarily up to about half the injuries we see are burns. We see cuts, scrapes, fractured bones, and at the extreme end, we see up to amputations due to extreme injuries from fireworks.
And is it really crossing the board of ages? I think a lot of like older folks that might be drinking a little too much, but you got kids that get hurt too.
Unfortunately, we do see a lot of children that are affected by this as well, primarily due to supervision, and then you think some fireworks might be safe. So for example, giving a toddler a sparkler, you think that's the safe start to get them into fireworks. However, they're extremely dangerous. They burn at over 2,000 degrees and they can cause substantial burns and injuries.
What do you see as far as, that's a good example of like a mistake people are making with fireworks. I think a lot of people have a lot more confidence than they probably should when it comes to explosives.
Yes.
But like when people come in and tell you their story, oh my gosh, I mishandled this or I didn't know that. What do you guys hear a lot?
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier. Any type of substances, you really don't want to be using any type of fireworks if you're drinking or using other types of substances. That's a huge mistake that we see from
Your
time to
faculties
time.
just aren't there.
You're not responsive. You're just not responding in an appropriate time. But pointing fireworks at people, never a good idea. Shooting them off indoors, things of that nature are just not recommended.
Yeah, we talk about kids too. Sparklers is a really good example of, I have a memory of being very little playing with those, but what is some good advice for parents who are supervising? Maybe they're gonna let the kids play with something. Where would you guide them on that?
Yeah, supervision I think is required, but distance from the fireworks is actually more important. It's safer to be at least 30 feet away from any active firework just due to sparks. We see a lot of injuries due to bystanders because the sparks go everywhere. Something shoots off in a wrong direction and then a bystander might be injured. But a great example would be a glow stick. So the good news is, if your kid's running around at night, you put a glow stick in their hand or one around the neck, you can actually see where they are and supervise them better.
I have one of those for my dog too at the campground, which is kind of funny, but there's a lot of similarities between pets and toddlers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's say you're playing and you get hurt. I mean, there's some obvious injuries that you got to go straight to the ER, but what might be something, like when do you escalate if it's not so obvious? I'm thinking of a smaller cut or a burn, but burns can be kind of sneaky.
Yeah, a lot of times with fireworks, they cause very deep thermal burns due to the heat, and they look a lot, smaller than they actually might be. So if you have any injuries to your face, to your eyes, ears, your hands or fingers, if you can't move your hands or your fingers in a normal fashion, those are instances where you want to seek immediate medical care at the emergency room.
Yeah.
Other things would be if the burn is bigger than the size of your palm, if you're bleeding a lot, if you can't hear, so something loud went off and you can't hear anything, those are all instances you want to seek immediate care.
I would imagine your team has to really brace themselves on the start of this day.
They are prepared. They're very prepared.
I'm thinking of like TV shows that set episodes on the 4th of July and everybody comes into work that morning like, oh boy, here we go. Dr. Yoder, thank you so much for coming in. Everyone have a safe holiday. We'll be right back.